Crowley, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Crowley, this is the time and date set for your parole hearing today in Montana. Okay, do you know your Montana state DOC number?
31.
Here, I'll just,
31.
if you
I
could
don't
state your
know.
if you could state your full name, please, and then I will, for the record, indicate what your state.
It's Francis Charlton Crowley III, and it's 3026-126.
Thank you.
I believe.
You're correct. Thank you, Mr. Crowley.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just really stressed out right now.
You bet.
I'm in the hole because I almost it's just I don't even know right now. So.
Okay, just relax. My name's Jimmy Patel.
Yep.
I'll be the lead today on your parole hearing, along with two other board members, Christina Lucero and Bradley Newman. Okay.
Okay.
And we will be discussing why you were incarcerated in Montana, what you've been doing with your time, and any programming that you completed in Oregon, and any recommendations, and it will allow you to present your parole plan, the parole board, towards the end of the hearing. Also today we have multiple witnesses. We have your attorney, Mr. Brook, I think, and your sister, Alicia Mitchell, and then a representative from the Montana Missoula County Attorney's Office, and a representative from USDA Forest Service. Okay, so I'm just going to go over a little background with you here. You were received, I guess, at the Oregon State. Let's see, you were received on 3/28/2019, and then you were placed at Interstate Compact to the Oregon prison on 4/5/2021. You have a parole eligibility date in Montana of 7/13/2023, a prison discharge date of 7/9/2038, and then a 10-year tail to follow on probation, which discharges on 7/6/2048. Does that sound about accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm going to go over your legal background here, what you were sentenced for in Montana. I want you to tell us in detail what the circumstances of those offenses were, and why you were sentenced to the term that you were. So on 3/26/2019, you were given a 10-year sentence for assault on a minor out of Missoula, Montana. On the same date, you were given a 10-year sentence for criminal endangerment, a 10-year sentence out of Missoula. And then the same date, criminal child endangerment, you were given 10 years suspended out of Missoula. These counts were all to run consecutive. So you actually received a 20-year custody sentence. Does that sound correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, tell us about the circumstances and what was going on at the time of the offense, sir.
Well, you want to know what happened with Grayson, or you want to know why I got so much time? I don't understand.
No, I want you to tell us what happened.
There's so much going on.
Yeah, I want you to tell us the circumstances, what led you to get sentenced in Montana when you got in the accident with your 5-month-old nephew, I guess it was, and what took place at the Lolo Hot Springs prior to the accident.
Okay. Well, it's really hard. To make it simple, I had been sober for about 3 months. Me and Alicia were on the way to see our mom, and we were both just going through a hard time. I guess I really didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to be a father figure as a drug addict, and I didn't know how to overcome the urges at the time, to overcome the emotions that I had. Me and Alicia kind of got stuck out at Lolo Hot Springs, and we had our differences, and we started to argue about things because I was running from a gang that was trying to kill me, and I wanted to go to Alaska, and Alicia was scared and wanted to go to our mom's house, and I didn't know what to do. And about 3 months of us being gone from Portland, I broke down. I was alone with Grayson all the time in the woods, and I just felt like I needed to get high. I was lonely and just scared, I guess. And I got high. And before this, I actually went, and this is the messed up part, because I thought I was getting high responsibly. I went and got Grayson a daycare provider, and I went and got a job out baling hay that I was supposed to go to, and I was just gonna go get high and bale hay, and I got high the night before, and I got way too high, and I didn't realize it until the morning Alicia closed the door, and I just started hallucinating, and I drove back and forth a few times. I wasn't allowed on the property, because I had recently just gotten kicked off the property because of my anger issues. And I drove back and forth, and then I went to the, I think his name was Dave, went to his house and knocked on his door a couple times to see if he could take Grayson. He wasn't there. So me and Grayson did what we always did, and we drove out into the woods and went driving around. And I was just too high. I guess I started cutting trees down, and I just left Grayson out in the middle of the woods. I just remember walking around looking for a spigot. These dudes are just screaming now. I was looking for a water spigot to fill up his bottle, and I just remember just branches breaking every time I pull up on it. And I don't know how this happened.
Okay, well, let me just, I want to clarify a couple things after reviewing your pre-sentence. You went to Lolo Hot Springs, and there was an argument. I guess they said you were trespassing. You returned with a gun. Subsequently, then, I guess information was received that there was a crash occurred, and a 5-month-old baby was in the car. When the deputies arrived, this is where, I don't know if you remember this, but this is what was in the court document, the pre-sentence investigation, which revealed you said the baby was dead and you buried the baby at one point. Then you wouldn't tell them where the baby was. Did you attempt to bring the baby out of the woods, but you had indicated to the authorities that the baby got too heavy, and then you just left the baby there, and you did not know where the baby was? It was 91 degrees. So they went on obviously a hunt to find the 5-month-old child. It was 91 degrees out. In fact, when they found the child, there was some sticks in the child's mouth, wooden sticks. They had give the child 3 bottles of Pedialyte, which was gone in 40 to 50 seconds. And I think you said that you buried the baby. One of the things you said, you buried the baby was dead. And the hair samples from the baby tested positive for amphetamine and methamphetamine. So, I mean, is that in a nutshell what happened?
Yeah, kinda. Grayson was 7 months old.
7 months old. Okay.
Yeah, and after he's all right. So when I was in Portland, Alicia kicked me out of the house because I got high. So Grayson changed my whole world. This kid changed my perception on who I was. I was there for him at the hospital. I tried to be this little boy's father figure from day one. And I raised this kid. I was with him always. And I got high. I was sober for a while, and I got high, and Alicia kicked me out of the house. Well, after about a week, I realized that I didn't want to get high, and I wanted to go home. So I went home, and Alicia wouldn't let me touch Grayson because she was paranoid about the residual effects of the drugs coming. So I wore gloves. And I wore gloves, and there's videos of me that Alicia has of me wearing gloves. And I wasn't high. I had come down for like 5 days, but I still wore gloves. And the reason that there was a trail leading to Grayson is because I was pulling stuff out of the diaper bag looking for the gloves because I knew I was high and I could not hold on to him anymore. And that's why I fucking put him down. And I was just too fucking high.
You're getting wound up, and I need you to calm down, all right?
Thank you, Mr. Brook. So, okay. So I think we have a pretty good gist. I just have one question though. Why did you not tell the authorities where Grayson was? So I'm having a little.
I tried bringing them up the road. I just remember him like popping out of the ground. I remember I thought he was in a tree. I thought bears ate him.
Okay.
I thought a firefighter took him.
Okay, so you were heavily under the influence of what, meth?
I believe so. They tested me. I thought I got bath salted. I've used drugs my entire life, and I've never in my life have experienced anything like that. Never. Okay. But they said that I just used really, really good meth, and I used way too much of it. And they are probably right. They took the toxicology report, so yeah, I was.
Okay, Mr.
I messed up.
Thank you. So here's the thing. Were you on looked like you were an absconder? There was a warrant out for you. You were absconder out of Oregon at the time of this took place?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you also have a federal sentence that you were sentenced on, looks like on 3/27/20, and that federal sentence was for possession of prohibited person of a firearm. You got 36 months with 18 months to run concurrently with your Missoula sentence and 18 months to run consecutively to both sentences, I guess, in Oregon and Montana, which means you still have an 18-month sentence to follow with the feds, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were the
thing I would like to clarify.
What would a
I didn't
circumstance?
have a gun. I didn't come back with a gun. And why I have a federal charge with a gun is because they had me with, and I'm not saying that I'm not denying it. I had a shotgun. I lived in the woods with a little kid. Of course I have a shotgun. But I did not have a gun. When they made a police report and they said that I had a gun, I came back with a gun, that is incorrect. That is 100% incorrect.
But the gun that they were referring to, or they charged you with, was the shotgun.
Yeah, they found that out in the middle of the woods. They gave me a federal charge because they had a picture of me holding a shotgun.
Okay.
Not because I didn't get caught with a gun. I admit that I had the gun. I'm not saying that I didn't, but I did not have a gun. I did not come into camp with a shotgun and threaten anybody.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Now I want to talk a little bit about your prior criminal history. I have offenses dating back to 2005, residential felony, burglary out of Washington, a robbery out of Washington in 2006, a burglary out of Washington in 2007, an assault fourth degree out of Oregon in 2008, 2009, assault fourth degree and burglary, 2 felonies out of Oregon, 2012, possession of meth, burglary, 2 counts for a total of 3 felonies, and then a burglary of 3 counts and a criminal mischief back in 2013. It looks like, give or take, about 12 or 13 prior felonies. Does that sound correct?
I don't know if it's that many. That sounds like a lot. But I mean, if you have my record, I have my record too, and I only counted like 7, which is still a substantial amount. But I think a lot of those burglaries you're talking about got dropped. I think I've only actually been charged with like 4 burglaries.
Okay. Okay. All right.
But
So,
I can't be 100% sure because, to be truthful, I've never really cared about in the past my criminal record and what it really represented.
okay.
To me.
Some of those, like burglaries, you got 3 counts on. Now, maybe they did dismiss some, but I think your pre-sentence actually said 8. So you might be correct there, Mr. Crowley. So let's talk a little bit about your previous adjustment to community supervision. It looks like you had probation violations out of Dallas, Oregon in 2004 and 2005, a probation violation in 2007 out of Washington, and then probation violation out of Oregon in 2017. I'm not sure if that was the one that you were absconded from, but what's been the problem with community supervision? Why have you not been able to follow the conditions of probation?
Belief system, I would say. The way I was raised, the way I grew up lacking a father figure, a mom, any sort of authority. You know, if anything, my dad taught me the complete opposite. I ran away at a really young age, and I had extremely bad PTSD from, and I still do. And it's something that I literally fight every day. I put myself in situations to overcome my PTSD. But I did not believe that I was wrong. I did not believe that I needed somebody to tell me what to do in my life. I did not believe that I was supposed to listen to this person tell me that I'm wrong.
Okay.
And I just rebuked the world, society,
So
and I just messed
So
up.
let's talk a little bit. I think and I don't have a lot of your treatment records that you've maybe been involved with Oregon, but I did note on the pre-sentence that you were evaluated for 3.5, which is intensive inpatient treatment, CD evaluation. What have you done in Oregon? Anything? Have you been involved in any type of CD treatment, or were you given a evaluation, or can you?
I went to a treatment program while I was incarcerated last time I was in prison, and it was ran by inmates.
Okay.
And I've always been ostracized. I've told on somebody, so I'm considered a rat. That's why I'm in the hole right now. It's because they took me out of honor housing last night for I have no clue why, and they put me in an active unit. And
did they get information that you were being threatened, or?
Oh yeah. Oh, they know. I am like one of the highest profile cases here. I'm on TV constantly. I'm on court cam. I have been assaulted and I have refrained from fighting. I have been spit on. I have been beat up, and I have put my hands behind my back every time. Anyways, besides the point. No, I've never had treatment. I went to treatment once at Powder River. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come to Oregon, is because I wanted to do the Powder River treatment program again, because I failed it.
Okay,
and
so
I wanted to go there. And
are you involved in mental health counseling or taking any medication?
I'm involved in counseling. I am. I refuse to take medication. I don't refuse to take medication like I'm crazy and like I'm not going to take medication. I'm extremely emotional right now. I mean,
You bet. Yeah, just relax. So you have it looks like depression and PTSD, right? I think that's what is that what you were diagnosed? Is it helping? Is the counseling helping you?
These institutions don't help you do anything, honestly. I think that's one of the hardest things. And I think it's why I'm one of the things I'm so depressed, is because I didn't have a childhood. I didn't have the right. I became the person that I was because of my childhood, because nobody was there to help me. And when I'm asking for help, nobody is there yet, and they're supposed to be. These people are supposed to be here to help me.
Frank, we're not here to litigate the prison system, all right? Mr. Patelis, I can tell you that he has completed a relapse prevention 1.
Okay.
In the system. That's reflected on his institution program list, which I got from Mr. McElroy.
Yeah, I have that. It was kind of hard to read. So we got relapse prevention 1.
Yes. Besides that, there's no other treatment programs that he has been admitted to as to substance abuse while inside. We have, however, lined out treatment for his possible release after his federal sentence.
Okay.
I can address that when.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. So,
sorry for being emotional, guys.
That's okay. So let's talk a little bit about
what are you put together.
What are you proposing to the parole board that, what your plan of action would be, or your reentry plan?
My reentry, oh man. Well, as Mr. Brooks faxed you guys all the applications and all my certifications,
yes,
the programs that I've created in prison and out of prison.
If I could address this part of it, Mr. Patelis.
Go ahead, Mr. Brooks.
So we have a substantial release plan built up, but at the time that we were constructing that plan, we were under the impression that he had a much smaller bit to serve on his federal sentence. So what we've received and compiled is a number of basically conditional acceptance letters. First of all, just to list off a number of them, CC Plumbing, The Ridge here in Missoula, and Missoula Works, and a number of other places have offered conditional employment to Mr. Crowley. I think that when we had discussed those, they were maybe under the impression that it would be a sooner offer of employment than 18 months from whenever this board grants him release. But we've also set up some pretty substantial treatment programs here in the community. He has been accepted to Winds of Change as well as Crosswinds. Again, those bed dates can be a little bit, the beds come and go as they get too full. There's not there's not a guarantee that they're going to hold it on to him, but we have letters of acceptance from both Winds of Change and Crosswinds that he will be placed in sober living, inpatient living when he comes out. The other things that he's been involved in has been basically trying to get organized with some sort of parenting counseling. And the way that we've done that has been through engaging in Mountain Home. Alicia, who's on the Zoom as well, Alicia Mitchell, has been participating with them. They're a single mothers working group, giving them resources to support them, as well as training. And Frank has already been involved in completing training with them on parenting and dealing with child rearing and those types of issues, because of course, not only his substance abuse was at issue here, but his handling of children. And so those items are lined out. When we first got them lined out, however, I think that we were misunderstanding the time frame that we were looking at for his possible reentry. And so what we're looking at here is, I believe that those still are in place, and that those matters would, or those organizations still would accept him. But what we're asking is for him to be paroled to his federal sentence so that we can most likely now go through the pre-release program and then go out into these things that we've set up.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Book. When is his discharge date? I mean, I could not find, when is his discharge date from Oregon? Do we know?
I was not aware that he had additional time to serve in Oregon.
I don't have a discharge date from Oregon. I'm on an interstate compact from Montana because I felt Oregon had a better treatment program here. And unfortunately, because I was in interstate compact, I wasn't allowed to partake in the treatment, and this has just been sucked.
I understand. So you're just a transfer
yes,
inmate.
sir.
What happened with the absconding on parole, though? Did you get any time for that?
No, they erased all my parole. So the reason why I absconded last time, so I got out and I was doing really good. I got a job. Alicia was living on the streets. I got her an apartment. Her and like I was excelling. I got a car for the first time in my life, insurance, everything. And I told on somebody for trying to kill a district attorney in the Dalles, Oregon. And Alicia's boyfriend found out somehow, and he posted me all over Facebook. I actually sent you guys a picture of a screenshot of it and my name change application. I've also changed my name to prevent anybody from looking me up. I did it under non-binary. That way my record is sealed. But I ran from Oregon because I told my probation officer and I told the cops, and there's numerous reports of this, that people were trying to kill me. And they were trying to kill me. They broke into me and Alicia's house twice. There's police reports. And they would not.
So to answer the question, I don't believe that there's any other Oregon time standing over.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. No, that's fine, Francis. And thanks, Mr. Brook. I see what happened here. So you're a transfer inmate to Oregon. At this time, I'm going to ask the other board members if they have any questions of you, and then we will proceed with the witnesses and allow them to make their statements.
Thank you, Mr. Patelis. Mr. Crowley, you've told Mr. Patelis a number of ways your crime and your sentence, your incarceration has impacted you. How did your choices and your conduct impact the victims and the community?
I honest to godly cannot hear a word you're saying. I
Let me
don't
try
know if you're
again.
too far away or
Let me try
Okay.
again.
I can hear you, but I can't hear the other person speaking. Could you?
Okay, stop talking. You told Mr. Patelis how your sentences and your incarceration have affected you. How did your crimes, your intentional choices and conduct impact the victims and the community?
I can't hear you. Are you asking me how my crime impacted the victim?
The
I sure
victims of
am.
the victims of the
I'm
community.
sorry, I can't hear you.
That's
I'm
okay.
on a cordless phone in a cage.
That's okay. What Mr.
How it
Newman,
impacted the victim and the community?
yes, that was his question, Mr.
Well, it
Brown.
impacted. Okay, sorry, I really can't hear you. I
That's
apologize
okay.
for being
That's
in
all
a
right.
situation. I tried everything in my power to not be here, and it happened. Well, it affected the community horribly. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it affected Grayson. I mean, he was such a little baby. So I don't understand how it could affect him, like, psychologically, you know. But I feel as though it affected him in a way is where... Are you guys still there?
Yes, we are. We're here listening.
Okay, it just cut out. I feel that it affected him in a way where it traumatized me. And all I want to do is make sure that that kid grows up and has the best life he can have. I don't understand that it could necessarily have affected him in an adverse way. Maybe if he would have, got really hurt, yeah. But him being so young, I don't think that it has any psychological harm to him. The community, I believe that it hurt the community in a horrible way. I think it's traumatized people to see all the bad things that can happen in this world. And we see it every day on the news, these mass shootings, people leaving babies in the woods. It can't be good for anybody. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to join search and rescue, is to help create a positive look for the community. I understand me coming back to the community, people are going to have this predisposition of who I am. You look at my record and you say, well, this person's been in trouble his whole life. He doesn't listen. He doesn't check in with his probation officer. He left the baby in the woods. That predisposition is set. I get that. But that's not who I am. That's not the man that I am today. That person died years ago. And I feel as though if I come back and I help the community and I show the community as I have, I've created a program within Mountain Home, Montana. Through Alicia, I've created the Roots program to help mothers and children. I have already set myself in the community as a good person. And I believe that I can change the way that the world looks at me.
Mr. Crowley, the court looked at all of your circumstances and determined that a 20-year custodial sentence was appropriate as far as punishment and protection of the community. What have you done to earn parole in 4 years of that 20-year sentence?
Can you repeat what he said, please?
Mr. Tellis, if you want to translate for me, go ahead. I'm not sure what the issue is.
Mr. Newman indicated that the court, when reviewing all the information and the circumstances of the offense, sentenced you to a 20-year custodial sentence. You've served about 4 years of that sentence. What have you done, or why do you deserve a parole after 4 years?
Well, I've done every single thing I can to create a new behavior pattern in me. So one of the things that I realized when I got arrested was I am not the man that I believe I am. And do I belong out there? I left the baby in the woods, and this is something that I would never do, ever. Never. Would I burglarize somebody if I'm hungry? Yeah. I'm a drug addict? Yes. Would I do all these things on my record? I have, and I've done them intentionally. Would I ever leave a baby in the woods? Never. So then I asked myself, why? You just did something that you would never, ever, ever do. Who are you? And at that point, I started change, and it took me a couple years. It took me a couple years to actually believe in myself, to actually see the change, to start to reprogram who I was as a person, to counteract the belief system that I have. I used to be a part of the gang. I used to have this belief system that was just wrong. I used to have this automatic thought process that when I got hit, I fought back. I had the automatic thought process of when somebody argues with me, I would argue back. I would have to do these things, and I started looking at myself, and I started paying attention that I'm a human being, and that I can recreate my mind. It doesn't matter if I didn't have a good upbringing. It doesn't matter if nobody is around to help me. I can do it myself. And I have spent the last 5 years reprogramming who I am. 100%. I've studied psychology. I have a 4.0 in psychology. I have a 97 GPA in fitness. When I am released, I plan to take the National Council of Strength and Fitness certification and be one of like 27,000 that are registered in the United States. I have created a program in prison to help the vulnerable in fitness. I've created my own program in prison. I have done nothing but inspire people. I am right now trying to create a program for the mentally ill in here to help them to communicate, to learn to adapt, to learn to see that the officers in here are not our enemies, because when we believe that the people in here are our enemies, we take that to the streets, and we don't listen to the probation officers, the people that are there to actually help us. We have adverse thoughts towards them. They are our enemy. And I want to help people not do that, not to have to go through all the things that I've had to go through, to endure the trauma that I had to undergo to get to where I am today. I have studied advanced mathematics. I have studied physics. I have done everything I could. I have taken numerous college courses. I'm about to graduate as a home inspector. I have my food handler's degree. I am a certified flagger. I have my MVAC certification. I have done everything I can. Everything that I can in prison to make sure that I am a good man for not just Grayson, but everybody around me. I see the ripple effects that I've had on the world. It's a hard thing to live with. It's a hard thing to come out of one day and realize that you've been a cancer to the world. That's not who I wanted to be. I didn't grow up. I didn't want to be a drug addict and leave a little baby in the woods and have the entire world hate me. So I fixed it.
Okay,
I fixed who I am.
Mr. Crowley, I think we got the picture here. I think Mr. Newman, do you have any further questions, sir?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Lucero, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. You both covered it for me. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So at this time,
I can definitely hear you. Man, I plugged my ear like I wasn't going to be able to hear you either. It was super loud.
So at this time, I guess we'll hear from your sister, Alicia Mitchell.
Okay.
Ms. Mitchell, if you could just direct your comments to the board.
Mr. Patelis,
Yes,
would you like me to mute his connection so he's not talking the entire time?
sure. That would be good. So we can,
The question is, I guess, are you able to unmute it in any way?
No, you guys are fine. I won't talk.
okay, we just want to make sure that there's no interruption.
Yeah, I promise you I will not talk.
Okay, we'll take your word. So Alicia, if you would like to start, and keep your comments to the board and what you would do to assist to help Francis if he was granted a parole.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thanks for, I guess I should start by saying good morning, and I'm Alicia, Frank's sister. And thank you for taking your time today. I do appreciate it. And I feel that Frank does too. I guess I definitely can start by remembering Frank as my older brother and having a good childhood with him, and just a couple good memories with him of how he taught me how to just make basic mud pies, and how I would try to steal his gum from him and he'd try to put crickets in it because he ended up getting tired of me taking his gum from him. And I remember this time where I dropped a bunch of Cheerios all over the floor and I just made a huge mess. And I remember he was just so frantic and he was trying to clean them up. And I know now that he was afraid that mom was going to get mad, but he ended up cleaning them up for me. And so I had some good memories with him. And I guess one of my last memories that I had with him growing up was me saying goodbye to him and giving him my piggy bank full of God knows how much money was in there, but I just felt that I needed to give it to him. And I look back now and I feel that he must have been a good person in my life for me to give my piggy bank to him. So I had great memories with him when we were little kids. And then I ended up being taken away with my mom, and he unfortunately was left behind with his father and didn't really have a great upbringing.
Alicia, I don't want to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
we appreciate that background. But if you could just stay on course and tell us what you would do to support him, if you can support him, if he was released to his federal detainer, federal sentence when he gets out.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I've been already involved in Frank's life and been a big, huge support for him and encourage him to do the right thing. And I think that it helps me because for one, I'm rooted here in Missoula. I've made sure that I've been a part of the community and have a good solid structure here in Missoula and a good baseline just to make sure I'm strong so that I could actually be strong for him when he gets out this time. I feel that that's extremely important. And just knowing where everything's at and knowing if he has any questions or concerns, I know where to go and how to help him or who I could direct him to.
Okay, that gives us a.
Did I answer that okay? I feel like
Yeah.
I'm leaving something out. Sorry.
No,
Okay.
you let us know that you would be supportive and how you would be able to assist him. That's what we needed to know. So
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Alicia. And at this time, Mr. Brook, I guess we'll hear from you.
Thanks, Alicia. I just wanted to ask you one more question, and that's, Frank is, he's an addict. And the way that this ended up happening was he was an addict and he was around your kid. And so I wonder, how are you going to be able to recognize and deal with the fact that he's going to be out in the community and that the risk of relapse could still be there? And are you going to be a responsible person to this parole board in making sure that if he is falling off the rails, that he is put back into the system?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I actually have made myself a little more comfortable with even talking to the probation office. I've been in contact with a couple of the probation officers and I've made myself more, just there and making sure that most definitely if he gets and starts relapsing, most definitely, because we can't have that. I can't have that around my kids. And I definitely would do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There were some questions asked about how this affected Grayson. I think you're probably in the best position to tell us that. How has this affected Grayson right after it happened? Obviously, he probably wasn't doing too well. Tell us about it.
Oh yeah. Well, after it happened, Grayson ended up going to the hospital. And he was taken into state's custody, and he wasn't around his mom. Yeah, it took a lot to get him back.
And so you now have Grayson back in your custody. How's he doing?
Oh man, he's doing great. He's doing great.
Does he have any relationship with Frank?
Yeah. Oh yes. He talks to him every day.
And how's that go?
Good.
Okay.
He's always wanting to talk to his Uncle Frank.
All right.
And Uncle Frank's always trying to talk to him. And
thank you, Alicia. Members of the board, I just wanted to ask her a couple brief questions, and then I'll give a brief statement here. I think we've gone over many of the programmings or the possible release plan and the programs that Frank has been through. But one of the things that's impressed me most about him is how wholeheartedly he's thrown himself into treatment and reprogramming. He mentioned that he has a certification in physical fitness, and that is true, that he has now used that to try and develop programming in the prison to help rehabilitate elderly inmates, to help keep them physically fit. And he is aiming at that in the future with job applications to places like the Ridge in Missoula. We already discussed his employment and possible housing at Crosswinds that he's been accepted to. The matter I want to discuss, the issue that I want to discuss next is the sentence that he received. Mr. Newman brought up, he received a pretty long sentence. He's received a 20-year active custody sentence, and he's only done 4 of it. I want to discuss a couple of the statistics on that matter. Criminal child endangerment in Montana, I was just looking at the average sentences imposed and on the DOC website. Criminal child endangerment receives a sentence of 3.2 years time on average. An assault on a minor receives a sentence of incarceration of 3.9 years on average.
Counsel, I apologize for interrupting you. This is not the sentence review division. We're not looking at the fairness or unfairness of a sentence. This sentence was imposed on a particular offender under particular circumstances. An offender that had a 20-year history, including numerous assaultive conducts, burglaries, and so forth. I'm not terribly interested in what other courts sentenced other criminal endangerment cases for. I want to know what your client has done to make some changes given his long history of creating victims. So I'm not interested in statistics about other cases. I want to know about your client and why he deserves a parole 4 years into a 20-year sentence.
Well, and I understand that this isn't sentence review, Your Honor, and I understand that my client warranted a sentence above the average for this conduct. This is not the type of criminal child endangerment or assault on a minor that I have typically seen in the courts. And I don't think that this court should say, oh, well, he's done the average and therefore we should release him. I understand this isn't sentence review. What I want to point out here, the only reason I bring up those numbers is to say that Frank does have a substantial sentence over him, and he has already served more than the average sentence that is imposed. Moving on to what you specifically asked, Mr. Newman, Mr. Crowley has been in custody for 4 years, and during that time, he has taken all programming available to him, including trying to get himself involved in creating programming for people who are inmates he has also been involved in trying to get involved in programming outside of the community. Like I mentioned, with this mountain home, he's already completed the Circle of Security certification, which is, or this paperwork that will require more training when he comes out into the community. But I think that this shows an above and beyond disposition this time. He does have a long criminal history. I don't think that he put his back into treatment in his prior sentences. He does have a history of absconding from probation. I don't think that he was a changed person or that he trusted law enforcement at all when he was on probation. And I think that the change that we've seen now is such a big commitment to engaging in treatment himself, to figuring out what his treatment's going to be on the outside, and to figure out how he's not only going to address his addiction, but how he's going to become a better parent to his own children and to Grayson, his nephew. The final thing that I'll leave this board with is that if the board wants him to do more time, the board should parole him, because he's going to go to the federal system to do 18 months. If this board wants him to do more treatment, then the board should parole him, because he will go into the federal system where he has been recommended to complete the RDAP program, which is an intensive treatment program. If this board believes that he needs a belt and suspenders type of probation, then they should parole him, because he has federal supervised release to follow, in addition to an extensive amount of active time hanging over him. That federal probation officer has the ability, and often does when they come out, to test him for drugs on a daily basis. Even the slightest mess up on Frank's part could not only commit him back into the federal system, but would bring him back before this board to reactivate pretty substantial amount, as you mentioned, 16 years of active time hanging over him right now. So the concerns that this board has about safety of the community, his prior non-compliance, those are all absolutely valid concerns. We have a belt and suspenders custodian, but both in what treatment he's set up on the outside and in how the different departments of corrections, BOP and the probation department through the federal system are going to be treating him. And so I think that this board can reliably grant him parole without fearing that he is going to screw up immediately or return to his own ways. And if he does, even for a second, he'll be right back here.
Hey, Mr. Brook, not to interrupt you, sir, but so I don't forget, I worked in the prison system. I retired as a federal probation officer, as a chief. I'm having a little confusion on why Mr. Crowley was transferred from the Montana State Prison to the Oregon prison, because in my experience, you as an inmate just can't request that there's better programming in Oregon. Can anybody answer that? Why was he transferred from Montana?
I'll let Frank give a little more detail, but it's my understanding that, first of all, Frank, there was some discussion about whether or not Frank gave information against another person. That person was a person in the Montana DOC. It wasn't a person in the Oregon DOC. Secondly, it's my experience with other people before this board that they will often offer inmates, would you like to be transferred to Oregon? And I have had a number of inmates take them up on that opportunity.
Okay.
That is my understanding of how he got there. Frank, if I'm wrong, you can correct me.
Yeah, for the most part, that's correct. I told on somebody while I was in county jail, and I was in ASU D unit for a long time, and then they kicked me out, or not D unit, it was ASU something, the protective custody unit, and then they kicked me out to D unit, and it got really, really bad. People started threatening me all the time, and
I think we've answered the question.
Yeah,
Frank.
we got the gist, Mr. Crowley. I just wanted to make sure for the record why you were So at this time, thank you. Are you done, Mr. Brook? I don't want to.
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So I will go on. We'll go next to, I guess we'll hear from the Missoula County Attorney's Office. I'm not so sure who will be representing them because it says Mac Bloom or Brittany Williams. So I'm not sure who will be representing them, but you can go ahead and make your statement now, Missoula County Attorney's Office.
Good morning. My name is Brittany Williams. I'm a deputy county attorney with Missoula County. I'm also joined by Nick Schultz, who is a law enforcement officer with the Forest Service at the time of this incident. Thank you for allowing us to speak here today. I would just wanted to note at Mr. Crowley's sentencing hearing, I requested that the court not grant Mr. Crowley a windfall for the diligent work of law enforcement. Had it not been for the valiant effort of many officers involved in this case, we would have had a very different outcome. This case did and has continued to impact law enforcement, the employees of the Lolo Hot Springs, and the community of Lolo tremendously. As the board has noted, Mr. Crowley has a very lengthy criminal history. At the time that this case was filed, he was a double persistent felony offender and was a fugitive from justice. At the time of his sentencing, Mr. Crowley's adult criminal history spanned over 19 years. He had 27 arrest cycles and felony convictions for robbery, burglary, assault in the 4th degree, which was witnessed by a minor, and 7 additional counts of felony burglary, which I just confirmed with his PSI as well. It's the state's position that Mr. Crowley would not do well being paroled or under community supervision setting, which is shown through his numerous failures to appear, contempt of court, probation violations, and twice being found to be a fugitive. You've heard from Mr. Crowley today of his need for treatment and the steps that he's taken to seek out treatment. I would also note for the board that Mr. Crowley indicated in his PSI interview that he had been to treatment once. However, he quit due to his belief that he was a functioning addict and did not need it. Additionally, in his PSI, Mr. Crowley was not truthful in his representations. He had, in fact, been to at least 3 different treatments for alcohol and 1 for cognitive behavioral therapy, all of which were terminated for not participating. The last being in April of 2018, where he left within 15 minutes of being there. Additionally, at the time of his sentencing, I had information from the Oregon Department of Corrections, where he was a fugitive from, that his time there was spent in non-compliance and absconding. As stated in his PSI, he was set to go before the Parole Board in Oregon. We've heard information today that he is not sitting on Oregon time, but it's also the state's position that the facts of this case speak for themselves. Mr. Crowley engaged in a meth-fueled binge, which resulted in leaving his 5-month-old nephew with no food or water, in a soiled diaper and onesie, in nearly 90-degree heat, which eventually plummeted to 44 degrees. Mr. Crowley exposed this infant to the elements, which included bears, mountain lions, moose, and bobcat. His behavior went beyond driving under the influence. It went beyond endangering a child. His actions, in most circumstances, would have caused the death of this baby. Law enforcement searched for this baby for many hours. Numerous agencies, including BLM, Montana Highway Patrol, Forest Service, the Missoula County Sheriff's Office, and search and rescue were dispatched in search for this child. Mr. Crowley gave continuing contradicting stories of this baby's whereabouts, essentially preventing law enforcement from finding the child. As the Parole Board likely knows, this child was found around 2 a.m. when it was pitch dark, making the mountainside terrain nearly unnavigable. Mr. Crowley spoke today about essentially taking a stroll or a drive up on the mountainside. I would like the Parole Board to know that I visited this crime scene myself at the time this occurred. We could only drive up a certain distance on this mountain before having to navigate the rest on foot. I would submit to you that this is beyond a stroll in the woods where he set this child down. He purposely walked beyond the navigable road and left this child for dead. This child was treated at the hospital for his injuries, given food and water, and later the child underwent a first step evaluation, which included a hair follicle test. As stated previously, you noted that there was the presence of amphetamine, methamphetamine, and cannabinoids. In the underlying case, Mr. Crowley asked the court to believe that this was all a mishap fueled by his relapse. But I would again submit to you, based on his criminal history, that this is indicative of an escalating criminal behavior. Mr. Crowley had no regard for this child's life and refused to cooperate with law enforcement to find this baby. It's very apparent today that Mr. Crowley continues to focus solely on himself, solely on his role in this, his childhood, with very little regard for the child or the long-lasting impacts that this case has had on my office, on law enforcement, and the community at large. I would submit to you that this is a case with long-lasting impacts to everyone involved, and I would respectfully request that Mr. Crowley not be paroled today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Williams. Do the other board members have any questions of Deputy County Attorney Williams?
No, I don't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll hear from Mr. Schultz from USDA Forest Service.
Morning, Mr. Pateras and the rest of the board. My name is Nick Schultz. I'm a supervisory law enforcement officer with the U.S. Forest Service, based in Helena, Montana. But at the time of this incident, of this crime, I was the law enforcement officer covering the Missoula Ranger District on the Lolo National Forest. I was one of the officers on July 8th, 2018, that found Grayson on the mountain in the area of Lolo Hot Springs. It seemed that, Ms. Pateras, there were some questions regarding the incident or where exactly we found Grayson in the state that he was in. I can speak to that if yourself or the board members have questions about that.
Please do. I would like to hear that.
Sure. So we had when Alicia and Frank had come into, I guess we'll call it the area of Lolo Hot Springs, myself and my other Forest Service law enforcement counterparts had dealt with them with a number of calls. We knew that they had some sanitation violations from living out on the forest, and through the summer and whatnot. So we had contacted them. We knew of them. We had determined that Frank was a fugitive of justice and assisted the sheriff's office in apprehending him 2 weeks prior to this incident. So on the night of July 7th, I checked off shift early to spend some time with my family, and then was called by Missoula 911 regarding this incident that that they possibly had a missing child, that it involved Frank, and that the details were kind of unclear as far as what was going on. There were a lot of other officers on scene. I had been working a lot of other shifts, training another officer. But then when I member of the search and rescue unit here in Missoula, when my pager went off at midnight on July 8th, and I knew it was going to be a ground search for a missing child, I knew the seriousness of what was going on. I mean, basically every cop in the county had been looking for this kid since 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, and now it was midnight, and they were paging out additional resources. I drove up Highway 12 that night from Lolo with my off-highway vehicle, knowing that I was looking for a dead kid in the woods. And I had a new officer with me. Since I was a field training officer, I had a new recruit with me at the time, and as we're driving up Highway 12 towards the hot springs, I was preparing him for what we were doing, but there's no way this infant is still alive. Arrived on scene at the hot springs, unloaded my side-by-side. The officer who was in charge at the time, directed myself and another officer by the name of Deputy Ross Jessup with the Missoula County Sheriff's Office, directed us on a hunch to go check an old logging road, a skid trail, near what we call the Stars Place, near the hot springs. Now, keep in mind, this is Western Montana. This is old, timber country. There are old, logging trails, haul routes, multiple throughout, the many miles, many acres of the Missoula Ranger District of the Lolo National Forest. And Ross had a hunch based on some of the, incoherent statements that Frank was telling the detectives at the time, that Grayson's got to be up this road. So we went up this logging road for a couple miles, and it just ended. The road ended from where the timber unit had stopped, and we were looking for the car, that blue Chevy Corsica. And when we got to the end of the road, and keep in mind this is around 1 o'clock in the morning on July 8th, we were heartbroken, right? Like, we didn't find it. And we got out and we started looking, where the road ended, where you couldn't drive anymore. And we noticed like twigs were broken. It looked like maybe something possibly had driven, basically what was a game trail at a very steep angle. We followed that game trail until I remember seeing like a little light in the woods. And we ran towards the light, and that was the dome light of that Chevy Corsica. Ran to the car and looked in the car seat, and there was no kid. And once again, we're just, completely just like, man, like we found the car, we found the needle in the haystack, but the kid's not here. And once again, we were just immediately just, despondent. So, at that point, since we had found the car, okay, this is the right area. We, had other search members come to our location and to start a ground search from the car. I remember at that time, Ross kind of went uphill a little bit. I went downhill a little bit, down slope. And I started finding like contents of a diaper bag, a bottle, a diaper, stuff like that. So I told Ross, hey, let's focus our attention down slope. And down slope was towards Lolo Creek, down towards Highway 12, right? So we followed, found items until we linked up with some search and rescue members, got them out in a grid search, moving down slope, down from the car. And we came to a little bit of a clearing, and, it looked like a baby carrier and some towels were sitting next to a tree. And, the search and rescue folks that were with us, they're volunteers, right? They're not exposed to the same level of trauma that we are as law enforcement officers. And, me and Ross told them like, hey, you guys wait right here. We're going to go look at this, towels and the baby carrier over here. Because once again, we fully expected to find a deceased child underneath this tree. So we went, around the tree, and, no baby, just some towels, looked like, drop the baby carrier right there. At that point, me and Ross kind of regrouped and we thought about it. Everything at that point was telling us to go downhill, to keep going downhill to try to find Grayson. But something in us told us to go uphill. And there was like an old, what we'd call a skid trail, where they, yarded logs off the side of the mountain, up, and we decided to go uphill at that time, and not more than say 10 or 15 minutes of walking up this skid trail, upslope, away from everything else. We heard like a slight murmur, like a slight, baby talk. And we, just kind of like, wait, quiet, like turned off the radio, because I'm on the radio coordinating, search and rescue folks, come over here, check over here, come on this road, shut everything off, listen. And we heard it again. And we I just remember running in the general direction of where we heard that murmur, that baby murmur. And I remember Ross like pulling sticks out, like a little depression in the ground. And I remember Deputy Jessup like removing the sticks that were piled on top and pulling up this baby that was alive, with its eyes open, and really not overly fussy. He just looked at us. The most surreal experience of my life. And as you can tell, Mr. Patelis and members of the board, this this incident has affected me greatly. At the time, I was not a father. It definitely was very disturbing, and it took me maybe a couple weeks to kind of, decompress and kind of get my head on straight. But now, asking today to talk to the board here, I sit before you as a father of two boys, one 3 and one 7 months old. I believe the same age of Grayson at that time, and it's tough. It's tough for me as a father to think how another person could leave a child in the woods, in my opinion, to die. It's very, very, very hard to wrap my head around that. I can tell you that I wish Deputy Ross Jessup was here today to talk about his experience with this case. I talked with Deputy Jessup last night on the phone. I've worked with Deputy Jessup for a number of years and know him as a person of high moral character. But this call in particular affected Deputy Jessup a lot. He's a father of 4, and this is the call that kind of put him in a really dark place for many years. As it's becoming more acceptable in the law enforcement community for us to talk about us dealing with PTSD in our line of work, for the things that we have to deal with and come across, the tragedies and whatnot. And Ross has this call was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for him. And sent him in a dark place for many years. And he's doing better now, thanks to some help and this or that. But this call had a tremendous impact on Ross, on myself, on the law enforcement community. And yes, everything came out good. Like we found Grayson alive, right? If we had continued searching downhill where all those clothing items had pointed us, I can't speak to, how much longer Grayson had up there on that hillside. But just the vast landscape that we're talking about, the Lolo National Forest and the Missoula Ranger District, it could have ended so differently, but it still, to see this crime still affects me and Ross and the rest of the first responders that were on scene and dealing with it, in the Missoula community.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz, for that detailed explanation of the search. I personally appreciate the time. At this time, I don't have any further questions of you, but I will ask the other board members if they have any further questions of you.
I don't have any questions, just a comment. I'm glad to hear that it's become more acceptable for law enforcement to process stuff, because I just want to commend all of you for that, because I think it's really important in terms of the work that you do and being able to just be healthy. So that's all I had, Mr. Patelis.
No questions. Thank you for your statement.
Okay, Mr. Schultz, thank you for that again. Appreciate everybody's comments and statements. At this time, we will deliberate Mr. Crowley's case, and we will get back with a decision here. We'll put virtually everybody in a holding spot here, and we'll get right back with everybody.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I am so sorry. We are going to be with you in about 10 minutes. Please don't hang up. I
Okay.
apologize for the inconvenience.
No worry, I'll be here.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Crowley, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's the board's decision. We are denying parole at this time. We'd like you to reappear in 4 years in May of 2027. We'd like you to continue to participate in your mental health counseling and complete any recommended cognitive-based programming that might become available to you. Reasons for denial include nature and severity of the offense, previous criminal history, poor history on supervision, need for risk reduction programming, and parole at this time would diminish the seriousness of the offense, along with strong objection from criminal justice agencies. So that will conclude the hearing today, and good luck, Mr. Crowley.
All right. Thank you, sir. You have a good day.
You too.